With Path of Exile next expansion coming right around the corner, many of you have been busy planning their next League starter build. But what about the main build that you will be using to further progress into endgame and beat all Uber Pinnacle bosses? Well, we got you covered, as in today's video we will go over our top 5 strongest builds for destroying Path of Exile endgame. Each one of these builds checks every box on the list for cleaning speed, tankiness, and Pinnacle boss viability. We played and tested these builds ourselves, with the last one being a surprise that you don't really want to miss out. So sit back and relax and let us get started with our list. So starting off at number 5, we got good old strength stacking Shockwave Static Strike Autobomber build originally created by Palastoron. This build clears the entire screen while on the move thanks to the unique interaction between Static Strike and Shockwave support. After hitting an enemy with Static Strike, you gain a buff that causes you to continuously zap nearby enemies for a duration. These zaps are also considered melee attacks and hence they will proc Shockwave every time they occur. From there we scaled enough AoE to have our Shockwave pulses cover the entire screen. And that's pretty much how this build functions. But what about damage? How does this build get enough damage to absolutely destroy the tier 17 Delirious map that you guys are seeing in the background? Well, first of all, we are using Replica Alberon's Warpath, which grants us lots of flat chaos damage to attacks based on our strength. And since this is a strength stacking build, we got lots of percent increased melee damage modifiers from strengths to scale that damage. But wait a second, these modifiers only scale physical damage. How do we get them to scale chaos as well? Firstly, we take the Iron Will keystone on the passive tree, which causes these modifiers to apply to all spell damage accordingly. Then we use Crown of Ice to make it so that these modifiers now applies to attack at 150% of their values. This coupled with the Iron Fortress, we get about 4.5% increased attack damage for every 10 points of strength we have. Our build here has over 2500 strength, which results in over 1000% increased attack damage from strength only. And to further capitalize on this, we use the Boom Mace with the unique Elder mod that scales area of effect based on our strength. And as a result, we got our Shockwave to cover the entire screen. And that pretty much summarizes how this build scales. But now for defenses, we got over 8000 life from all of the strength we have. We also got max attack block thanks to our chest. And we have around 25,000 armor. Now this build isn't ascendancy dependent, so you got freedom of choice to either go with Chieftain in order to stack even more strength, Slayer for more damage, or you can do what we did over here and play this build as Pathfinder. Pathfinder provides us with that premium Mage Blood experience without actually needing to have a Mage Blood, which is neat. Now of course, if you wish to know more about this build, then be sure to check the video description, as there you will find a link that will lead you to a separate video where we covered this build in full. But now moving on to number 4 build on the list, we got good old mana stacking Arc Lightning Hierophant. We recently made a league starter guide for this one, which you will also find the link for down in the video description. Anyway, this build capitalizes on one of Path of Exile's strongest support gems in order to compete with other mirror tier builds in terms of damage. And that support gem is Archmage. Archmage provides a lot of flat lightning damage to spells based on your unreserved maximum mana. In this build, we went all out on mana stacking with items like Adzir's Foible and Cloak of Defiance. We also prioritized mana as the number 1 most sought after stat on our passive tree, including Cluster Jewel notables, as here we stacked Scintillating Idea Node for scaling both mana and lightning penetration. Alright, so now we got lots of mana, and as such, lots of flat lightning damage. How do we scale this damage? The Hierophant Conviction of Power Ascendancy increases our maximum power charge count by 1. This coupled with 2 Void Battery wands that also grants us 1 additional maximum power charge each, in conjunction with lots of spell damage per power charge we have, and every single power charge node on our passive tree, we ended up with 11 power charges, which ended up capping our crit chance on their own. And to further scale our damage, we got the Militant Faith Timeless Jewel that mentions High Templar Dominus specifically. This one gave us access to Inner Conviction Keystone, which grants 3% more spell damage per power charge we have. Now, none of the items and jewels we just mentioned are worth more than 2 divines at best, yet we still ended up with around 45 million damage, which is insane at this investment level. This is enough to beat Uber Pinnacle bosses, but both Mind Over Matter and the Agnostic Keystones only provides basic level of defense. The only downside of this spell is that there is little you can do to make yourself tanky when you are dual wielding offensive wands. Hence, attaining Mage Blood was the only way to triple this build effective life pool. You are going to need a Granite Flask with Determination Aura for physical medication, a topaz flask coupled with melding of the flesh jewel for elemental mitigations, and an amethyst flask for capping chaos resistance. Mage Blood role here is completely defensive, and you can play this build without it. You just need to be fine with using more than one of your portals to finish a map. That being said, it's still impressive how much damage this build can deal for the price you are paying for it. But anyway, now moving on to top 3, we got Cast on Crit Forbidden Rite Occultist. This build utilizes Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice Gem, which is an alternate version of Forbidden Rite that deals more damage. The downside is that this version has a life cost, which means you can't play it with Chaos Inoculation. However, GGG added Whispers of Infinity unique amulet to the game, which causes all skills to cost Energy Shield and a State of Life or Mana. This enabled people to use Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice in a generic Cast on Crit Occultist setup, which ended up proving to be a little bit too overpowered. The amulet alone single-handedly made this build the best and most popular build in Path of Exile. So popular, in fact, that everyone thought this build is going to get absolutely obliterated in Path of Exile 3.27. To our astonishing surprise, the only nerf this build received is a reduction to the amount of flat energy shield provided by the amulet, which is like nothing. On average, you will be losing around 1500 flat energy shield, and that's about it. This honestly doesn't matter because our cast on crit variation over here has over 50,000 armor. This coupled with Aegis Aurora unique shield, 90% all maximum elemental resistances, and chaos immunity, we are well rounded against all types of damage. In fact, this build is so tanky that we can just AFK the highest wave of Simulacrum with ease. Our massive armor pool coupled with the energy shield recovery of our shield makes us immune to smaller hits and makes big hits not really much of a threat. This build is just perfect honestly, dealing over 70 million damage at excellent paced clearing speed. Its downside is, well, it's a cast on crit build that needs Mage Blood, which means that not only it's quite expensive, but you can't really play it unless you got some basic experience with cast on crit setups. But now coming at number 2, we got our self-proclaimed best Herald Bomber build in the history of Path of Exile, and that is Herald stacking Blade Vortex Elementalist. This build capitalizes on buffs that the Elementalist received in 3.26. The build scales over 500% increased area of effect, which when combined with Herald of Ash and Herald of Ice, that in conjunction with the unique interaction between Impulsa and the Searing Exarch Shock Proliferation implicit on our rare gloves, you get these insane explosions that can single-handedly clear multiple screens around you in all directions. We achieved this massive AoE by both scaling the effect of our golems and stacking power charges in conjunction with the medium cluster node, which is Vast Power. That grants us 3% increased area of effect per power charge we have. We ended up with this monstrosity. While the build is mainly designed for mapping, obviously, we ensured that we have at least enough damage for something like Uber Eater of Worlds. As for defenses, we got only a basic level of defense here, again thanks to Mage Blood Flasks, which you can completely ignore if you only care about this build insane clearing speed. But now finally coming in at number 1, we got Hydra Spectre Necromancer build. This build hands down provides the best clearing speed for a summoner in Path of Exile, which is the reason why we decided that it should be our first ever minion build to be featured on this channel. Also, this build is getting buffed in 3.27, and that is the fact that itemized specters like Hydra are no longer lost when they die. This means that now you can safely play this build without having to worry about losing your Hydras every time you do a crazy tier 17 map. Now this doesn't mean we ignore defenses on our specters. In fact, each and every one of our Hydras has close to 400,000 effective life pool. As for damage, we're using Mata's Teaching unique scepter. This one hard sets our Hydra's base crit chance to match the Scepter's own crit chance. We also got Triad Grip unique gloves with 4 green sockets on them to fully convert our Hydra's damage into cold. Next we are using Wraith Lord unique helmet for summoning 4 additional Hydras. This in conjunction with the unique Delve mod that can be found on chests, which increases our maximum summoned specters by 1, we ended up with 9 specters in total. Now here is the fun part. We supported our Hydras with Awakened Greater Multiple Projectile support, which in total made them fire upwards of 54 forking arrows, which is enough to clear like 3 screens away and maybe even crash your game altogether. Highly recommended to give this build a try this league, you won't regret it. But with that we are done with our top 5 strongest builds to play in Path of Exile Keepers of Flame expansion. If you guys have enjoyed this video, then consider giving it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content like this one. My name is Phoenix and I will see you all in the next video.